Welcome to the Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
And a good Sunday afternoon, everyone. It's Terry Kilakos here. You're listening to the Real Estate Show. I'm your host, a chartered real estate and mortgage broker, as well as president and founder of Northeast Real Estate and Mortgage Agency. Today, we're going to be talking about the effects of COVID-19 on the mortgage and real estate market, and the effects are there. Today, my co-host Merav Marciano will not be joining me as she is at home with family, relaxing, taking care of the kids, because this is what we do today. We stay at home and we teach our kids and all that kind of good stuff. You can join the conversation, and the phone lines, we're going to be opening them up right away today because I know you guys have a ton of questions. We get all week, we've been getting emails and questions from our clients. So this is a great opportunity for you guys to actually join the conversation. You can call in at 514-790-0800. Or you can text into 514-800. You can also watch us and comment on Facebook Live at facebook.com/normally Northeast Mortgages. But today it's going to be /Terry Kilakos. So you can go directly onto my Facebook page where you're going to be able to see what's going on live. And if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is newsonthego.ca, where all of these shows live. So a little bit of a market update before we really kick off the show today. First and foremost, I mean, we've seen a series of rate cuts happen over the last couple of weeks. The Bank of Canada has reduced rates right now down to 0.75. This is falling pretty much in line with what the U.S. government has done as well. They've cut their rates. They've actually cut them rates right down to zero, in some cases in the negative. But for now, the government is staying put at 0.75. But what does that really mean to us as Canadians? I mean, yes, the overnight went down, but what does it actually mean? So what effectively that means is that the variable rate mortgages. So when you're looking at the overnight rate effectively is what impacts directly variable rate mortgages. It's what impacts your home line of credit. It's what impacts lines of credit, and what impacts some loans. So for the most part, people that have variable rate mortgages are going to actually see the rates go down. Whereas if you have a fixed rate mortgage, you're not going to see a change from that unless you actually go and refinance your mortgage, which brings us to our next point. What's going on with fixed rates? Well, fixed rates have actually gone up. Interesting. So fixed rates are not impacted by what the government is doing. They are actually impacted by the bond market. And when bond yields go up, then the rates go up. When bond yields go down, the rates go down. And this is what we've actually seen right now. We've seen bond yields actually go up. And because we've seen these bond yields go up, now we've actually seen the interest rates go up. And just to give you guys a little bit of an idea, if we were talking about a standard refinance, so 2 weeks ago, if you were to come to us and say we want to refinance, you would be looking at a 5-year fixed rate hovering in the high 2.5s, low 2.6s. Now, as of a few days ago, it's gone up to the 2.9s. So that's an interesting, a lot of people are kind of confused about that, wondering what's going on. Why do we have, the government is lowering interest rates, but yet the fixed rates are going up? Well, that's the reason why. The other thing that's going on right now is insured rates remain low. We haven't seen much of a change occur, but it's gone up a little bit, but not as much as the refinance rates and the conventional type of rates have gone up. Okay. Now, the other thing that the government has put in place is deferral programs. So the bank mortgages, the government has insisted, if you will, that the banks actually do something to help alleviate the stress of the average consumers. And by doing bank deferrals. Now, the interesting thing with the bank deferrals, and we've been getting mixed messages from clients. So there's a lot of people that have been reaching out to us and saying, I tried to contact my bank, Bank ABC, Bank XYZ, and what's going on? They're telling me that I don't qualify for it. So it's important to understand that every bank runs their own deferral programs until the government actually steps in and says, hey guys, this is what you have to do. Right now, it's business as usual for them. Now, there are banks that have stepped up and said, yes, we are going to defer payments by 1, 2, 3 months. My question to you, the listener, do you think it's actually a good idea? I'd love to hear back from you guys. You can text in with your comments, 514-800, or you can call in at 514-790-0800. Now, the deferral programs, what happens to those payments? It would be nice to say that those payments actually disappear, but guess what? They don't. Those payments actually hang around still. So you have to remember, my advice to you, and I was on the Natasha Hall show the other day, and I mentioned this, you got to remember, those deferrals do stay on your file, and it's important that you use it when you need it. So a lot of people have kind of jumped up right now. We're a couple of weeks into this crisis, and they're freaking out, and they're running to their banks to try and get those deferrals done. But they're going to defer you a month. Maybe they'll defer you by 2 months. They're not going to necessarily defer you by 6, 7 months like a lot of people are thinking. So my advice to people is to wait until you actually need that. We have a text that actually just came in. We would like to take a $30,000 variable mortgage to consolidate debt on unsecured line of credit, which has high interest rate in spite of excellent credit rating. Good idea? Absolutely. Now is actually the time to do any type of refinancing that you want to do. Now, before the banks change mortgage rules, before the government says, no, you can't refinance, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. So if you have this need right now, and this is actually something that's been coming up a lot. We've had clients call us. They want to actually refinance their mortgages to consolidate certain debts. They want to consolidate, high interest credit cards. They want to consolidate lines of credit. Now is a good time to do it. The bank rules are still allowing you to do this. I don't know if that's going to be available in a couple of months from now, right? I don't know if the government's going to step in and they're going to basically say, no, you are not allowed to do this anymore. Now, the other thing that's important to remember, when you're actually refinancing a mortgage, you don't only have to be refinancing it so that you can, pay high interest credit cards. You can also refinance, get some money out so that you can use that money for investment purposes. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more in detail. We have Michael, Mike, and another Michael actually on the line, and Lauren, who's calling to basically get on the line.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about the effects of COVID-19 on the mortgage and real estate market. Feel free to call in with your questions at 514-790-0800 or text into 514-800 in order to join the conversation. Just like we've seriously broken a record here. We have Michael, Mike, and Michael. Two from Montreal, one from Dorval, and one from downtown. Let's take the first Michael. Hey, Michael, how are you? Michael, you there?
Yes. Are you speaking with me?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah. Hi. So I'm expecting to close the real estate purchase 2 months from now.
Yeah.
I'm expecting my workplace to be closed any day now.
Mm-hmm.
And so my first question is there a possibility that my mortgage will be canceled? And second possibility, how that would affect, regardless of the mortgage, how that would affect the date of signing the contract if you're on the lockout and we cannot get out of the houses pretty much except for essential things.
So a lot of notaries, I'll try and answer a couple of things for you in order here. So a lot of notaries, what they've actually been doing they have been doing phone appointments with the clients. Okay, so they've been going over the act. So they've been going over the purchase documents. They've been going through the actual mortgage documents on the phone with them, and then you basically go into the office to do a quick signature, 5 to 10 minutes, and that's it. That's a couple of notaries that I know of. This is what they've been doing, and it's been working fairly well. Now, to answer your other question about your job closing, well, if you've already been approved for the mortgage, okay, and it's final, and you know you're on your way to the notary, the question is whether or not the bank is going to ask you for proof again before you go to the notary to prove employment. If they do, you might have an issue. In most cases, the banks won't do that. I saw a bunch of Facebook messages today where people were, they were talking about how, the bank is going to be canceling mortgages and stuff like that. I haven't seen any of that. No, there's been no talk of that. If you qualified for the mortgage, you should be able to go to the notary and close properly. Now, will we end up seeing some issues occur? I could guarantee you. But as far as we're concerned right now, it's business as usual. And even for yourself, I would kind of take it a day at a time. I think that, you should be okay. As long as your mortgage is done and it's ready to go, then you shouldn't have any issues.
Okay. Just one last thing.
Sure.
If it gets canceled, would I be legally responsible for not being able to fulfill the contract?
Well, if yours gets canceled, chances are there's going to be a lot of cancellations. And I don't want to say that it's going to necessarily be cancellations. What I would say is that it's going to be pushed a little bit. Okay, so maybe your transaction will be pushed by a week, a couple of weeks. I see that happening. I don't necessarily think that it'll be canceled altogether and you can walk away. All right.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Michael. Now we're off to Mike in Montreal. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey, Terry, how are you? I love your show.
Thanks, brother.
I'm actually a client of yours. I use Michelle and Fred. Fred was able to get me one of the lowest rates I've ever seen in history.
Fantastic. Excellent.
He actually, we went for another rate quote, and it actually dropped almost a full point. And I had it before on a fixed rate 5-year.
Yeah, absolutely.
My question is, I close in 2.5 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say there is a full-blown quarantine. We can't leave.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to my moving date on April 16th?
Well, obviously, I mean, if you have a quarantine, then everything, again, it's going to get pushed, right? So it's going to be pushed by a week, 2 weeks until that quarantine is lifted. I mean, it's unprecedented times here, right? There's nothing that, unless we go back to, during the time of the pandemics, once upon a time, and we can kind of look at history, but we live in different times right now. I think that there is going to be adaptation. There's going to be some changes that are going to happen over the next little while. I think you have to take a day at a time. But again, I don't think that it's going to necessarily be something that, your transaction is canceled and, you walk away. It has to be basically at that point deferred. The other thing that you might want to be looking at is if you're not able to sign at a notary, well, maybe you can go into the property before taking ownership and, kind of do things along those lines. But I'm pretty sure that once the quarantine, if there is a quarantine, then we don't have much of a choice. But if there's no quarantine, I'm pretty sure that the notaries will continue to meet people and do it the way that I kind of mentioned earlier, where they're going to be doing part of the conversation over the phone, and it'll be a very quick signing in the office.
Second question. Let's say we do sign, everything goes well, and then he can no longer move out because his house isn't built.
Mm-hmm.
Am I allowed to charge him my mortgage rate, or it has to be negotiated before we sign the final document?
It has to be negotiated before you sign the final documents, and it's a good idea to actually get this negotiated right now. You can basically determine what the actual rent would be that they would be paying and just set it up in an amendment.
Perfect. Thank you, Terry.
Absolutely, Mike. Have a great day. Now we go off to Mike in Dorval. He has a fixed rate question. Hey, Mike.
How are you?
I'm excellent.
Good. The reason why I'm calling is what you said. I have a fixed rate for 5 years. I've done 1 year already. I have 4 to go. I signed. I was just wondering because you were talking about interest rates going up.
Mm-hmm.
The fixed rate. Am I okay because I've signed for 5 years?
Yeah, you are okay. When did you sign your mortgage?
Last May.
Last May. Okay, so for the next 4 years, basically, because you're 1 year into it, you're okay. Your rates are not going to change. What's the rate, out of curiosity, that you have?
3.69.
2.69 or
3.69.
Okay, 3.69.
So that's sorry, go ahead. My other question was, would it pay for me maybe to break the contract and get a lower rate? But then that would be penalized, right?
So it is one of the things that we've been seeing right now. We've actually been looking at renegotiating people's rates. So there's been clients that had set up mortgages last year, not quite that high. 369 seems a little bit on the higher side, but I would actually encourage you to call our office. And we've actually, I'm proud to say, we've actually pioneered a service that we're offering right now where we're basically doing all the mortgage transaction over the phone. So it's something that we can actually look at. We can look and see if we can break your current mortgage and set up a whole new one.
Okay, but I'm with a bank already. Does that change anything?
No, it doesn't change anything. You can go from a bank to a broker and a broker to a bank and flip-flop back and forth. Part of the conversation that we're going to be having, though, is going to be what does your penalty look like and if it actually makes sense to do that. So I encourage you to call us.
I think they told me if I did it, I called them maybe about a month ago because all this was going on.
Mm-hmm.
They said it would be at least 4 months of my mortgage payment.
Okay, so that's not bad. That's not bad. It's not going to be the end of the world, and it might actually make sense to break it and redo it. You're listening to The Real Estate Show. Coming up, we're going to be looking at what the effects of COVID-19 on the mortgage and real estate market are as well. We have Michael, and we have a slew of texts that have come in.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
Thanks for joining us on The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about the effects of COVID-19 on the mortgage and real estate market. We'd love to hear what our listeners have to say about this subject. You can call in at 514-790-0800 or text in at 514-800 to let us know your thoughts on this matter. And let me tell you, there is a lot of text. Not sure I can actually get to all of them, but I'm going to do everything that I can to get to as many as we can. Right now, we're off to Michael, who's downtown. Hey, Michael.
Hi, Terry. We have to support the housing market during the health crisis. I suggest the provincial and federal governments should permit homeowners an income tax deduction for interest only on the mortgage payments for 2019. Now, I'm sure that you would support it, and I hope you'll promote it, but it seems it's a long time coming that the average homeowner cannot make any deductions on his home without incurring a capital gains tax. He should be permitted some basic deductions. What do you think?
I do tend to agree with you to a certain degree. I mean, if you actually look, the government does put in place certain programs. You know, every so often they'll do something when you're doing renovations and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think that they're enough. But if we look at our close neighbor in the States, they allow for people to actually deduct the interest off their mortgages on their personal properties. However, when you sell your personal property in the States, you also get dinged with capital gains. So it's one of these things where, you know, the government is disallowing you from deducting the interest on your mortgage, but at the same time, they're not charging you any capital gains on that property. So it's one of these things where they're giving a little bit, and you know, you're giving a little bit, they're giving a little bit, and you kind of meet in the middle.
Unfortunately, as prices continue to escalate, it's hard for the average homeowner to compete against somebody who's in the real estate business, buying up housing units, being able to make a profit, and obviously deduct all the expenses. It's getting very difficult, especially if we have unemployment rampant because of this health issue.
Right, I agree. And I think that we are going to probably see something around the corner from the government, but I do think that, you know, when you're looking at deducting interest, again, you're going into a conversation where now all of a sudden the government is going to be charging you capital gains. Now, if you're a real estate investor, now you're making money off whatever it is that you're buying and you're deducting that interest off of. Now that's a different conversation.
Yeah, but we're only
right?
talking about the interest on the payment. We're not deducting all your GST, PST, all your expenses, etc. So I think they can forgo that and be understanding, especially during this period.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that the government will end up doing something along those lines, and they are going to actually put something in place to actually forego that a little bit. We have another caller here, Samson from Laval. He has a refinancing question on his mortgage. Hey, Samson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My question to you is, I had a home line and a mortgage.
Right.
I paid off my mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
I still had a home line.
Yeah.
But my home line was quite a big amount.
Okay.
And so I was I went to the bank and I asked them if they could transfer into a mortgage.
Okay.
So on 13th of March, I had my home line transferred into mortgage.
Okay.
And the rate they gave me was fixed rate 2.540.
Okay.
Now, is it this rate or it will remain the same?
No, that rate should remain if it's a 5-year fix that you got, if you got a fixed rate mortgage. Now, if it's a fixed rate mortgage, then it will remain the same. The only time that your rate will fluctuate is if you end up having a variable rate mortgage. So variable rate mortgage will go up and down with what happens with the Bank of Canada, but the fixed rate mortgages will actually stay the same.
Okay. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Samson. Have a great day. And we got a notary on the line over here. Thank you, Laurence, for accepting. She was actually on our Facebook feed, and I asked her to call into the show. How are you?
Hi. I'm doing well. And yourself?
Good. I was curious to see what you're actually been doing these days with the COVID-19. What's the Chambre de Notaire saying?
Well, for now, they're not giving us any straight guidelines yet. So if notaries decide to work, everybody's still working. Some offices closed as of, I guess, a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
My office is still open. I decided to close for the next 2 weeks. However, we're still working from home. It's just meeting clients will be a little bit postponed.
Okay, perfect. So, and have you heard anything about what I mentioned earlier about how notaries are kind of doing part of the appointment on the phone and the other part is a face-to-face for a quick signing?
Nope, I wasn't in on it, but we don't have guidelines yet. We're not allowed to do that yet.
Okay.
So when it's companies, we're able to, make them sign a resolution and sign on their behalf.
Yeah.
But when it's individuals, we still cannot do that.
Okay.
So we're going to get guidelines in the next couple of days because the Prime Minister is speaking to the notary boards. So we're supposed to have an update in the next couple of days.
Perfect. And just a really quick question here, which we got from one of the texters who was asking about doing the notarial transaction with e-signatures. Now, I know that there's... What's going on with that?
That's what we're waiting for. That would be a great idea.
Fantastic.
So we can do either a FaceTime, speak to them, see their pieces of identity to at least identify them, and then we can do an e-signature. The same thing with wills. Usually we need a witness. They can try to take off the fact that we need a witness and just have the notary, sign with the clients. Especially on these hard times, a lot of people want to refinance their properties. So it's going to be important for us to continue working with the population.
Wow, that's amazing. Excellent. Thank you very much, Laurence.
My pleasure, Terry. You're doing a great job.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. And we have a text here from someone who wants to know whether or not it actually, if line of credit payments would actually be deferred as well. Now, it's important to remember that although a line of credit is called a line of credit, it's still a mortgage. Now, whether or not you're going to be able to have a payment holiday from that remains to be seen. The one piece of good news when it comes to lines of credit is your only obligation is really to make an interest-only payment on that mortgage. So I think that the government would probably chime in on that in a little while. But again, it is a conversation that you can have with your bank to see when they give you a mortgage holiday, if they would be willing to give you also maybe a month little holiday on your line of credit. I have another question here asking me what I prefer, whether or not I prefer to go fixed or variable. That question is from Archie, and she says that her husband John is a huge fan. I have a feeling I know who this is. It's going to depend. So if you would have asked me that question 3 weeks ago, I probably would have said go fixed. If you would have asked me that question about a week and a half ago, I would have said go variable. And if you ask me that question today, I'm going to say whether you go fixed or variable, you're not going to be going wrong. And I will be explaining that in a little bit more detail after the traffic. The thing that's important to remember right now, that variable rates, although the government rate has gone down, what we've actually seen is the banks have started to reduce their spread, which it's an interesting way that the banks kind of do things. And we're going to look at that on the other side of traffic.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Merav Marciano on CJAD 800.
Thanks for joining us on The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about the effects of COVID-19 on the mortgage and real estate market. We'd love to hear what our listeners have to say about this subject. Before we actually jump to some callers that we have on Facebook land here, I have a message from Isabelle Foran, who is a manager at a TD branch in downtown Montreal, and she writes, financial institutions provide borrowers affected in a variety of ways by the COVID-19 outbreak with payment accommodations that facilitate their ability to work through the immediate impact of the virus. And this can, she continues to basically say that the deferrals can go up to 6 months. Now, this is true, and I agree, and TD is one of the banks that is doing this. However, I have heard from other borrowers that when they called the bank and they asked for a payment holiday, the bank refused it, and they said that the mortgage was too new, too old. I've heard it all. So I'd like your opinion on that. I mean, if you guys are having issues like that, I'd love for you guys to either reach out today or even call us at the office. I want to get some feedback from everyone to see what's going on out there. And if you're having a hard time or if you're afraid, call us. This is what we're here for. You can always reach us at the office, 514-680-4674, even if it's just to answer your questions. We're there to help you. And even when we operate on a skeleton crew, we still have people there to answer your questions. Now we're off to Rula in Rigaud, who has a question about seller not agreeing to corona delay. Hi, Rula.
Hi, Terry. How you doing?
Great.
So we bought a secondary property, which is of recreational use.
Yeah.
Our signing is due on this coming Friday.
Okay.
And due to the current situation, we've asked for a delay in signing.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously spoke to our broker, our real estate broker, and tried to get a push, but the seller is not willing to push or delay the signing.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the biggest issue is that our jobs are in jeopardy, and we've recently had a significant pay cut. So even though that we are approved for the mortgage and we currently have the funds, taking on a secondary property at this point just doesn't seem to make any sense. We just want to know what we can do to either halt or delay the signing, and obviously delaying that cost that's going to come upon us.
Yeah, so you know, there's ramifications when you do something, right, like that. So when you delay something, you got to ask the seller, what are your plans? What are you planning on doing with this money? Are they selling this property to buy something else? You might be interfering with something that they want to do in the long run, right? The other thing that you can actually do is you can maybe pick up the phone and speak to your bank and say, look, if we end up going ahead and making this transaction happen, Are we able to have a deferral of the payments for X amount of time? Are we able to make interest-only payments and see what they come back with? Unfortunately, this is something that I've been seeing more and more, Rula. It comes up. Sellers don't want to back out of the transactions because it automatically, obviously, impacts them behind the scenes. And some buyers don't want to back out of a transaction. We, again, are living in unprecedented times. So I think that having a conversation, maybe a heart-to-heart between the real estate brokers and the actual vendors might help. Otherwise, speak to your bank and see what they would be willing to do in terms of deferring the payments from the get-go. I hope that answers your question, Rula.
Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, we went both those routes, and the answers were both no. So.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Out of luck. Okay, but thanks again, and best of luck to you guys.
Thank you, Rula. Be well. And now we're going to John in Pierrefonds, who has a question about property inventory.
Hey, Terry. It's John here. Recently, looking for properties with my son.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, the market was red hot.
Yeah.
We went to some sales. There were like 14 people bidding on the same house on West Park, stuff like that going on. And since then, you would probably know, how has it affected the inventory of existing properties being put on the market? And do you expect that this is going to throw a bucket of cold water on the red hot market in Montreal?
That's a great question. And you know what? It's something that's coming up every single day. So here it is. It depends on how long this is going to carry forward. If it, lasts a month, then, obviously houses are not going to be going on the market, which means that inventory is going to get even lower. Now, if inventory gets lower, it's the law of supply and demand, right? So the lower the inventory, the more desirable those properties will become. I think that once this is all over, and I'm pretty confident for me, I'm an optimist, and I believe that within a month to, a month and a half, we should start seeing kind of like a tail end of this, especially as, kind of the weather gets warmer and, spring really pops its head out. I think that what we're going to end up seeing is we're going to see all the people that were thinking about buying properties rush back out onto the market, but now there's not going to be any inventory, or there's going to be very little inventory, and I think that it's actually going to drive prices up. It might have a cooling effect for the time being, but it'll have that much more of an effect later on. That's what I believe.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Great answer. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Have a great day. The texts are flying in, guys. It's crazy. We've got another one here. The difference between an open variable, the difference between open and variable, what's better to sign with today? Okay, so let's make a little bit of a distinction here. There's opened and closed mortgages, and there's variable and fixed rate mortgages. Both a variable mortgage and a fixed rate can be opened or closed. But typically all mortgages are closed, which means that whether you have a variable rate mortgage or whether you have a fixed rate mortgage, when you break it, you have a penalty. The difference is whether or not you're going to be really taken to the cleaner that penalty, or if it's going to be a little bit more tolerable. Typically, variable rate mortgages come with a 3-month interest penalty, whereas 5-year fixed rate mortgages come with a little bit higher penalties, whether it's 3 months or it would be what's called an interest rate differential, which we've talked about on this show. So right now, if the question is whether it's better to go variable or go fixed, here is the answer. 2 weeks ago, like I said, I would have opted to go variable. Today, variable and fixed rates are back to being the same, because what happened was a variable rate mortgage, although it's based on the overnight rate, what you end up getting is you have a discount off of the actual prime rate. That discount used to be -1 to -0.75. Right now, it's almost at zero. I've seen banks actually charge a premium on top of the prime rate, so plus 25. The best right now on the market on the variable side, you're looking at -25, about -50 in a couple of cases. Guys, we have run out of real estate. If you need to get a hold of us, you can reach us at the office at 514-680-4674. I'm so sorry if I didn't get to all your text messages. Please stand by. I will be sending you guys responses to them via the texting system. Till next week, everyone, be safe. Love you all.